My boyfriend is the most doting person in the world. He always says he will marry no one but me. However, before our wedding, I discovered he anonymously answered a question. What is it like to deeply love someone but be unable to be with them? Chapter 1. I always thought Alex was the best boyfriend in the world. Until that Dragon Boat Festival day, I went to his house to find him. From a distance, I saw him shielding a girl behind him. Facing them was Alex's grandmother, pointing at the girl, trembling with anger. What are you doing here? Haven't you caused enough harm to our family? Get out, as far as you can go. The girl hid behind Alex, tugging at his clothes, her slender and delicate figure looking extremely pitiful. Grandma, it's a holiday, I just wanted to bring you some food. Scattered on the ground were rice dumplings. Alex's grandmother was shaking with rage. I don't need you to bring anything. She picked up the rice dumplings from the ground and threw them hard at the girl, the hard packaging tearing the girl's skin, leaving a line of blood. Grandma! Alex stood in front of the girl, and a rice dumpling hit his chest. Alex! The girl cried out. Alex grunted in pain, gritted his teeth, and said coldly to the girl, "Why are you still here? Get out." The girl cried, sobbing, "Alex, I just wanted to see you." In the dim light, I clearly saw Alex's eyes redden. But he still said, "Janet, I advise you to leave quickly, no one wants to see you here." Janet cried and turned around. Maybe her vision was blurred by tears. After walking a few steps, she suddenly missed a step on the stairs. Seeing Janet about to fall down the stairs, at the critical moment, Alex rushed over without thinking. He hugged Janet tightly, protecting her with his body. Chapter 2. That night, Alex didn't come home until midnight, with bandages wrapped around him. He explained to me that there was an accident at the construction site, the workers got into a fight, and he was accidentally involved. I sat on the sofa, looking at him, tears streaming down my face. Alex panicked, grabbing a tissue box and clumsily wiping my tears. "Honey, are you upset? Don't cry, it doesn't hurt at all." He tried all sorts of ways to make funny faces to cheer me up. Only when I finally couldn't help but smile a little did he feel relieved. "Look at you, if I don't come home, you forget to eat, and then your stomach will hurt again." Alex washed a plate of fruit for me and went to the kitchen to cook. I watched him bustling around in a cinnamon roll apron. Soon the aroma of spicy chicken filled the air. Alex couldn't handle spicy food, but because I loved it, he quickly learned to cook Szechuan and Hunan dishes. Everyone thought I had the best fiancé in the world. At this moment, in this extremely cozy room, I thought so too. But I couldn't fool myself. I saw it. I saw a few hours ago, in the flower bed downstairs at his grandma's house, the girl named Janet crying while applying medicine to him. She sobbed as she applied it. "Why can't we be together?" Alex pursed his lips and said nothing. The girl cried so hard she was shaking. What did I do wrong? Why is fate so unfair to us? Alex, I only ask you one question. I've loved you for 11 years, and that has never changed. And you? Do you still love me? For a long, long time, Alex didn't speak. Finally, he turned his face away. It was the first time I saw him, who was always described as cold and reserved, crying so hard. He said, "Yes." Chapter 3. Alex and I have been together for a long time. I'm a doctor at the city hospital. His grandma had surgery back then, and I was responsible for checking on her. Alex's grandma often held my hand tightly. Such a good girl, be grandma's granddaughter-in-law. I looked at Alex from a distance, his face turned red as he looked away. Grandma complained to me, "Hey, that silly boy likes you but is too shy to say anything. If he doesn't make a move, I won't help him anymore." From that day on, Alex started pursuing me. Holding flowers, carrying cakes, this 1.85-meter tall man squatted down to tie my shoelaces on the street, like a big, obedient golden retriever. I was busy with work. Sometimes he would wait downstairs for 3 or 4 hours without a single complaint. At that time, Alex was already an industry rising star, young, handsome, and rich, with many girls liking him. No one would have thought that when he pursued someone, he would be so shy, like a teenager experiencing his first crush. My colleagues all envied me, saying, "Helen, a man this good is rare in the world." At the end of that year, Alex officially confessed to me. He took me to watch fireworks, and at the most splendid moment in the night sky, he looked at me with sparkling eyes. "Helen, be my girlfriend, I will treat you well for the rest of my life." I closed my eyes, tears of happiness streaming down, and said yes. I thought, from this moment on, I had the best boyfriend in the world. Chapter 4. Alex was indeed the best boyfriend. His WeChat cover photo was of me, our photo was stuck in his car, he reported in via video call when he was on business trips, and he came home to accompany me right after work. I never checked his phone because I felt there was no need. If I couldn't trust Alex, who could I trust? At 1:30 a.m., Alex was asleep. I took his phone and went to the bathroom. I wanted to know who this girl named Janet was. At dawn, Alex woke up. The phone was back in its place, he didn't notice anything unusual, just kissed my cheek. "Honey, I'm off to work." After Alex left, I opened my eyes. Silent tears soaked the pillow. Chapter 5. Alex and Janet were childhood friends. Alex's dad was a worker, Janet's dad was a boss, but the difference in their social standing did not affect the bond between the two kids, they were always very close. Until their sophomore year in high school, when Alex's dad had an accident. The reason was that Janet's father had embezzled public funds and cut corners on a construction project. A half-built house collapsed, burying Alex's dad underneath. Alex's mother had passed away early, he lived with his dad and grandma. Now that the family's main pillar was gone, his grandma had a heart attack and was in the hospital for a long time before her life was saved. In a post titled "What is it like to deeply love someone but be unable to be with them?" I saw Alex's anonymous answer. He recorded this dark history by date. June 5th, she came crying to apologize, but Grandma chased her away with a cane. I felt very upset. June 21st, she came again, Grandma got sick with anger, and her condition worsened. I had to harden my heart and tell her never to come again. She cried, and it made my heart ache. Loving someone feels like this. Then there was a long blank period. Several years later, in winter, I saw Alex update again. December 6th, I haven't seen her for many years and have been living a normal life with Grandma. I fell in love with a girl. She's wonderful, gentle, and pure. For the first time, I understood what it means to be an angel in white. Although I haven't won her over yet, I can already imagine our wedding, and thinking about it makes me very happy. It's great, I've finally moved on. After that, Alex didn't write anything new for a long time. Until a few days ago, he edited the answer one last time. He added 2 sentences. She came back. I realized I still love her. Chapter 6. I forgot how I spent that day. I just remember crying and crying until I eventually fell asleep on the sofa. When I woke up, I had been carried to the bed by Alex. He kissed me and smiled happily. "I saw it, the pregnancy test in your bag." It felt like a bomb went off in my mind. Yes, that day I went to his grandma's house to tell him this news. But then, after the huge shock, my initial joy was completely washed away. Alex didn't know what I was thinking. He happily touched my abdomen. "You need to rest well, I will take good care of the mother of our baby." He was really happy. But after his happiness, there was a faint, hard to detect emotion in his eyes. At night, I pretended to be asleep. In reality, I secretly listened to Alex making a phone call on the balcony. "Janet, my girlfriend is pregnant. I have to be responsible to her, we shouldn't contact each other anymore." Janet's hysterical cries came through the receiver. "What about me? What should I do? You're abandoning me too." Janet had had a very tough time these years. After the truth came out, her father went to prison, and those who once treated her like a princess scattered overnight. She lived like a stray dog. Finally, I didn't know what Janet said, but Alex suddenly rushed to the door. "I'll come to you right now. Please, don't do anything stupid." The car lights shone in the night, 2 white beams, cold and bleak. Janet had slit her wrists. When I followed them to the hospital, she had already been rescued, her face covered in tear stains. Alex held her tightly, like a treasure he almost lost forever. Janet curled up in Alex's arms, clutching his sleeve, crying and trembling. Alex, please, don't abandon me. You're all I have, you're all I have. Alex held her, soothingly. Okay, I won't abandon you, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I stood at a distance, my lower abdomen heavy, my heart aching so much it was hard to breathe. I picked up my phone and dialed Alex's number. I watched Alex hurriedly comfort Janet, then took the phone and ran to a distance. He adjusted himself for a long time, and when he answered the call, his tone was normal and relaxed. Hey, honey, I'm at the office. Something urgent came up, and I forgot to inform you. There's soup in the fridge from yesterday. You can have some, I'll be home soon. I interrupted him, speaking softly. Alex, turn around. I'm behind you. Chapter 7. At that moment, it was like a knife had stabbed into Alex's back. I saw his spine instantly straighten, and he stood completely still. After a long time, Alex finally turned around, trembling all over. Behind him, people were coming and going in the lobby, but I was nowhere to be seen. I looked at his expression, as if struck by lightning, and after a long while, I softly laughed. I was just kidding. What's wrong? Did you believe it? Such an old trick, and you still fell for it. I wasn't actually behind Alex, I was on the third floor by the glass window, quietly watching him from above. I watched as he adjusted his breathing for a long time before he finally laughed in relief. Yeah, I was tricked by our Helen again. I laughed and echoed a few words before hanging up the phone. I didn't want to confront Alex. Now was not a good time for a confrontation. But that doesn't mean I won't do anything. A nurse came over, calling my name. Ma'am, it's your turn. Please go to consultation room 301. I shivered slightly, saying, all right. Chapter 8. That night, Alex came back very late, and I had already gone to bed. He lay behind me, circling me in his arms like usual. Went to bed so early? I lightly hummed. Today was especially tiring. Alex nuzzled my temple with his nose. Honey, you must be tired, carrying our baby. I shifted away, avoiding his touch, and broke free from his embrace. Alex was stunned. What's wrong? This was the first time I rejected being intimate with Alex. Nothing, I said sullenly, with my back to him. For the baby's sake, you need to be careful. Alex realized and then laughed. Baby, Daddy will endure it for you. He touched my belly. But it's okay, as long as you're born safe and sound, it's worth any hardship for Daddy. Alex slept in the guest room. I sat up from the bed, quietly looking at the moon hanging high outside the window. Even though he had left, his scent still lingered in the bedroom. The mint lemon fragrance was from the shower gel I bought him. But mixed with it was the scent of Si Passione by Giorgio Armani, which was so clear the moment he approached and hugged me. That was Janet's scent. I opened the window, letting the cool night breeze blow in. Sitting in front of the computer, I opened that anonymous answer. What is it like to deeply love someone but be unable to be with them? I opened a document and noted down the first date. Alex, you used this question to record your love with her, so I will use the same question to record my love with you. This will be my final gift to you. Chapter 9. I knew that Janet would take action. I just didn't expect her to come so quickly. I've been feeling unwell lately and have taken many sick days to rest at home. Alex was worried I wouldn't eat, so he specially ordered clay pot porridge for me. The delivery took a long time to arrive. When I called, the platform said it was self-delivery by the store. When I tried to contact the store, the phone was always busy. 2.5 hours late, the doorbell finally rang. I opened the door, already angry. How could it be so late? I stopped mid-sentence, stunned. Standing at the door was Janet. She was holding the delivery bag, staring at me without blinking. After a long moment, she gave a faint smile. She said, "You're not as pretty as I imagined." I widened my eyes, and the next second, Janet threw the delivery bag on the ground and collapsed onto the floor. "I'm sorry," she said, tears welling up quickly. "I got hit by a truck on the way here, and my arm got scratched, so I was late." I looked at Janet, and she looked at me. We both knew this scene was not for each other. Sure enough, the next moment, Alex appeared in the doorway. He looked shocked at the mess on the floor, then at me standing there, full of anger. His voice changed. "What's going on? Janet curled up on the ground, the porridge spilled all over her, making her look particularly pathetic. I'm sorry, Alex. I was too late, and your girlfriend must have been very angry and pushed me. It wasn't a hard push, I just didn't stand firm. I lowered my eyes, looking at the pitiful Janet, then raised them to look at Alex. Alex didn't look at me. He quickly walked over to Janet and helped her up. What happened to your arm? Janet's arm was still bleeding. I got into an accident on the way here, just a scratch. Let's go to the hospital first. Alex helped the staggering Janet towards the door. Alex. I called his name. He paused for a moment, turned back, his eyelashes lowered. Helen, you disappointed me today. Alex left with Janet. I clearly saw, as Janet sat in Alex's car, she turned her head and gave me a triumphant smile. Chapter 10. When Alex came back that night, he was still angry. Janet is my high school classmate. Her father went bankrupt, and she was greatly affected, didn't get into college, and is now working at a hotel. I thought I'd support her business a bit, so I ordered porridge from her place. Helen, she's had a hard life. You have everything now. Can you not make things difficult for a girl who's been unlucky? I stared at him for a long time, tears slowly rolling down my face. I raised my hand to wipe them, but they kept coming. Finally, I covered my face with my hands and broke into sobs. Alex panicked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be harsh. Don't cry, you're pregnant. Don't get upset. It's all my fault, I spoke too harshly. I covered my face, listening to Alex continuously comforting me and apologizing. He was really looking forward to the birth of our child. I cried for a long time before finally catching my breath to say, I'm sorry. Alex thought I was apologizing for making things difficult for Janet. His expression softened, and he patted my hair. It's okay, just don't do it again. But I wasn't apologizing to him. This apology was for our child. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. Chapter 11. A week later, Alex brought Janet into his company as his secretary. His explanation was, Janet was bullied at that hotel. Her father has a bad reputation, and many companies don't want to hire her. Since I'm her classmate, I thought I'd help her out. Janet stood beside Alex, softly saying to me, Helen, I will definitely take good care of President Alex. Taking this opportunity, she added me on WeChat. Every few days, she would send me messages, no text, just pictures. Alex laughing and chatting with others during lunch. Alex deep in thought during a meeting. Alex's side profile while sleeping during overtime. These silent demonstrations seemed to show she was fulfilling her duty as a personal assistant, telling me how well she was taking care of Alex. But the hidden message was to show me how close she and Alex were. I never responded to a single one. But in that edited document, I recorded them all by date. July 11th, she sent a photo of him eating. He never used to share the love bento I made for him with others, but this time, he shared the food I made with his colleagues and ate her cooking himself. July 13th, she sent a photo of him in a meeting. There was a faint lipstick mark on his shirt's shoulder. Others might think it was mine, but I never use pink lipstick. I guess she cried in his arms. July 17th, she sent a photo of his sleeping side profile. They were so close that in her lens, even a few of his eyelashes could be counted. When the company had a team building event, Alex, as usual, brought me along. It was a company tradition where employees could bring their families. But at that event, Janet and Alex looked more like a couple than Alex and I did. They played volleyball on the beach, a sport I'm not good at. Janet and Alex played very well, their laughter echoing across the beach. I remembered that in Alex's records, he and Janet met in volleyball class. At this moment, with the sunset, the golden light covered all traces of time. They must have returned to their carefree teenage years. Youth is a barrier, and only they were inside the castle while everyone else was outside. I took a sip of the drink on the table, and surprisingly, my heart didn't hurt as much as I expected when I thought of this. Helen, you shouldn't drink something cold. I didn't know when Alex walked over and took the ice-cold Coke from my hand, replacing it with a bottle of room-temperature water. Is it too sunny here? If so, I'll accompany you back to the hotel. I looked at Janet standing aside. Her expression wasn't good. I turned to Alex, smiled, and said, "Okay, let's go back." That night, Alex stayed in the hotel with me. I couldn't sleep, so he sat with me on the balcony, borrowed a guitar, and played and sang soft tunes to help me fall asleep. His singing drifted far, even making passing staff remark, "Alex really loves his girlfriend." Janet must have been provoked. Before bed, I received her message. "Do you think pretending to be oblivious will make it as if nothing happened? If it weren't for Alex's grandmother's disapproval, and if you weren't pregnant, do you think Alex would still stay with you? He doesn't love you at all. Conventional suitability can never surpass genuine heartfelt love." I closed my phone. Alex walked out of the bathroom, drying his hair with a towel. "What are you looking at?" I smiled. "Nothing. Janet wants to see me go crazy. She wants me to confront Alex, to cry, to cause a scene, to make her accountable for me and the child in my belly. The more troublesome the current girlfriend, the more it highlights her pitiful, humble, and selfless love that asks for nothing but love in return. But I won't give her that satisfaction." Putting down my phone, I gave Alex a gentle smile. "You should keep playing volleyball with them tomorrow. I love watching." Chapter 12. Unfortunately, the next day, Alex couldn't continue playing volleyball with Janet. His grandmother suddenly passed away. Alex's grandmother passed away in her sleep. She had a smile on her face when she passed, with a pair of knitting needles and a half-knitted set of baby clothes at her bedside. The nanny told me that the night before she died, Alex's grandmother was still knitting those baby clothes. All my life, I first saw my husband off, then my son. Fortunately, my grandson is successful and has found a wonderful granddaughter-in-law for me. Now I'm about to have a great-grandson. Since Janet's return, my heart has been getting harder and harder, gradually becoming as impenetrable as cement. But when I saw that half-knitted baby outfit, I completely broke down. I held that outfit and cried silently, unable to catch my breath, my limbs going weak, nearly fainting. Alex's grandmother was always a smiling old lady who had endured hardship all her life. Even after her grandson became successful, she remained extremely frugal. She was very good to me. Although she couldn't get used to living in a new house and stayed in her old home, she remembered my menstrual cramps and would make brown sugar eggs every month, taking the bus for a long time to bring them to me. The old lady passed away with a smile, probably feeling she had no regrets in this life. But I do. I have many, many regrets. I wish that the day I took the pregnancy test to Alex's grandmother's house, Janet hadn't been there. Then I could have shared the good news with them, and we could have happily enjoyed a meal together with Alex's grandmother's handmade dumplings. 10 months later, the baby would be born, and Alex's grandmother would dress him in the clothes she had knitted long ago and sing old lullabies to put him to sleep. None of that will happen now. In the morning hall, Alex looked more haggard than I did. In a corner, he buried his head in my shoulder, tears dripping down. "Helen," he said softly, "you're my only family now. Let's get married by the end of the year, okay?" I hugged him, softly comforting him, holding back the question that almost slipped out. What I wanted to ask was, what about Janet? Because even at this moment, the moment when Alex was most vulnerable, most dependent on me, and proposing to me, he still smelled of Janet's perfume. Chapter 13. Janet told me she would win. It was a secluded restaurant where she asked to meet me. The death of Alex's grandmother acted as a catalyst, speeding up many things. Janet couldn't wait for me to confront Alex, so she finally lost patience and took the initiative to confront me. "During your pregnancy, every time Alex said he was working late or on a business trip, he was with me." After saying that, Janet stared at me intently. I responded with a calm, indifferent look. She wasn't surprised but instead smiled with satisfaction. "I knew it. You already know everything you should know. Alex has always loved me, but because of our parents, we couldn't be together. To take care of his grandmother's feelings, he chose you. But Alex's grandmother was old and would die eventually. After that, no one could stop Alex and me from being together. Even if you have a child, I can make him come back to me." I lowered my eyes and said softly, "So you had it all planned out?" Janet smiled smugly, with a hint of pride. There's no choice, Helen. From a conventional standpoint, you are a suitable marriage partner. I understand why Alex chose you as his wife. But as I told you, conventional suitability can never surpass genuine heartfelt love. Janet was waiting for me to break down and cry. But I took a sip of sparkling water and finally let out a light laugh. A real laugh, full of disdain and contempt. Janet's face quickly turned red with anger. What are you laughing at? I smiled and shook my head. Janet, in these love stories, if he really loved you that much, he would be willing to defy the world for you, right? Janet froze, as if she couldn't process what I was saying, opening and closing her mouth without finding a retort. I was extraordinarily patient, but Alex did nothing. He didn't defend you, didn't fight for you. When you left, he actively looked for someone like me who is suitable for marriage. Janet, forgive me for being blunt, but I think both you and Alex have vastly overestimated your love for each other. Janet's face was bright red with anger, her neck stiffening, her voice sharp. What do you know about our bond? Alex has always loved me. It's me. I laughed again. Raising my hand, I showed her the sparkling ring on my finger. Okay, Janet. Alex loves you. Then can you explain why, now that Alex's grandmother has passed away and no one can stop you too? Why is he proposing to me? Chapter 14. That night, when I got home, I saw Alex sitting on the sofa. As soon as he saw me walk in, he stood up immediately. Helen. His voice was hoarse. I knew Janet had lost her temper and confronted him. Yes, I know everything, I said calmly. His eyes grew redder, and he walked towards me, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. I and she. I made a shushing gesture. Alex, don't say anything. Let's have a drink. Playing a record at home and drinking chilled whiskey while listening to the music has always been our couple activity since we started dating. Alex's expression brightened a bit. Being willing to relive old memories with him perhaps meant I was choosing to forgive him. He quickly brought out the glasses. The record spun, and light, sorrowful melodies filled the room. Helen, you're pregnant. Drink this instead. Alex drank whiskey himself and handed me freshly squeezed juice. I didn't refuse, sipping the kiwi juice and tasting an indescribable bitterness. Alex, I really love you. I spoke softly. Alex's eyes turned red. He took a large gulp of whiskey and finally lowered his head. Helen, it's my fault. I interrupted him and asked quietly, can you promise never to see her again? His response was a long silence. I don't know how much time passed before I heard Alex say softly, Helen, I don't want to lie to you. My heart, already at rock bottom, sank even further. Janet is different for me. When I was young and poor, Janet shared her pocket money with me so I could buy lunch. I was introverted and often bullied by classmates, and Janet would stand up for me. She was so good. My youth was always bleak, and she was the only light in it. Perhaps because he drank too much, Alex eventually fell into a deep sleep while speaking. I put down the juice glass and went to the bedroom. My luggage was already packed. Why didn't I leave immediately when I first discovered him and Janet? I knew my weakness and hesitation all too well. Alex had been the perfect boyfriend for too long. I couldn't make myself let go of so many years of love in an instant. Rationality told me that I couldn't leave when I loved Alex the most. If I did, I would be unwilling and deeply regret it in the days and nights that followed. I would deceive myself, thinking he didn't actually do anything too excessive. So, I chose to let my love wear away bit by bit. Until it was completely gone. This process took time, but the decision to leave him was made from the very beginning. I took out the gifts I had prepared for Alex. One was a certificate from the hospital regarding a medical abortion. The other was a note with a URL written on it. Yes, Alex had been eagerly awaiting the birth of our child. But the day after Janet cut her wrists, the day he rushed to her side overnight, I also went to the hospital. I'm sorry to my child. But I couldn't let him have a father like this. I placed the two gifts beside Alex and then dragged my suitcase, walking into the night. Janet once said that what stood between her and Alex were Alex's grandmother and the child in my belly. Now, all those obstacles were gone. Whether they would end up together, I didn't know. All I knew was that my love for Alex was my shackle, and now, eroded by time, I was finally free. Chapter 15. Helen completely disappeared. Alex called her and sent her messages, but got no response. Amidst his frustration, Alex discovered what Helen had left behind, those hospital documents. Medical abortion. The date was. Alex's breath suddenly stopped. It was that day in the hospital. That day, she had joked softly, "Alex, I'm right behind you." But it wasn't a joke. She really saw it. How excessive had his actions been, that made Helen, who had always wanted a child so badly, immediately decide to abort their baby? Alex trembled all over. His shaking hands flipped through the hospital documents for a long time, finding the note Helen had written to him. On it was a URL. Alex took a deep breath, then opened his computer and typed the URL into the search bar. What popped up was a Q&A page. Seeing the question, Alex's heart stopped again. What is it like to truly love someone but be unable to be together? It was the question where he had documented his experiences with Janet. However, as Alex's vision cleared slightly from the tears, he saw that the question was the same, but the answer wasn't his. The answer was from Helen. In it, she recorded their entire love story. November 18th. Today, a young man brought his grandmother to the hospital. He seemed very tired. While his grandmother was getting in for, he was still working on a project proposal. Finally, he fell asleep against the wall in the hospital corridor, with dark circles under his eyes, looking pitiful. I brought him a blanket, and he woke up, rubbing his eyes and thanking me with a gentle and beautiful smile. I didn't dare look at him. December 8th. Grandma said he likes me. I looked up at him, and he immediately blushed and turned away, as if something outside the window had caught his attention. But when I lowered my head, he looked at me again, like a little animal testing the waters. Today's weather was nice. The person I like seems to like me too. December 31st. He confessed. How wonderful, I have the best boyfriend in the world. Alex read on day by day. Helen had written their love story as a chronicle, allowing everyone who read it to see how they fell more and more in love. On June 22nd, the peak of their love was reached. She wrote, "I'm pregnant. I want to tell him the good news as soon as possible." Alex's hand paused abruptly. He dared not read the following parts. Because he knew, from that peak of love, it was all downhill. July 11th, she sent a photo of him having a meal. He never used to share the love-filled lunches I made for him with anyone, but this time, he shared my dishes with his colleagues and ate what she made. July 13th, she sent a photo of him at a meeting. There was a faint lipstick mark on his shirt's shoulder. Others might think it was mine, but I never use pink lipstick, I guess she cried in his arms. July 17th, she sent a photo of his sleeping profile. They were so close that in her lens, you could count the lashes on his eyelids. Finally, Alex's hand stopped at the last line of this answer. "Darling, forgive me for calling you that one last time. It's 1923 now, and the baby has left us forever. I'm lying on the hospital bed, writing this last message to you with my phone. Why can't people who truly love each other be together? Actually, there's only one reason, and that is that this true love is mixed with too many impurities. Whether you love me or her, it's the same. This answer has been stored in my draft box. One day, I'll publish it, and by then, I'll have broken free from the shackles of love and started a new life. Which means, by the time you see this letter, I no longer love you. I sincerely wish you well and thank you for all the beautiful times you gave me. I always believe. We truly loved each other, but in the end, we couldn't be together. The night enveloped everything, and the neon lights blazed like fire. Passers-by saw a man in a suit stumbling out of a bar, finally collapsing to his knees and sobbing uncontrollably. People came and went, but he was now truly homeless. Chapter 16. When Janet came to find Alex, she was shocked by his disheveled state. She pulled him off the couch. This once gentle and fragile girl had lost all her patience and sharply questioned him. "Alex. Helen is gone. Why can't we be together?" Alex remained silent, allowing Janet to tug at him. He reeked of alcohol, which reminded him of many things. For instance, Janet did lend him pocket money when he was young and poor. But when the company's cash flow was in trouble, Helen had also taken out all her savings to help him through the crisis. Janet had stood up for him when classmates bullied him. But when a client made things difficult, Helen had also come back after working late, with red eyes, helping him make call after call to mediate. Janet was now sobbing uncontrollably. Like a broken record, she kept asking, why can't we be together? Alex wanted to answer her, but he found he couldn't. Finally, Janet, exhausted from crying, knelt at Alex's feet, clutching his clothes. Once a lady of high standing, she had lost all her dignity, pleading desperately, "Alex, please, marry me." In the past, seeing her so pitiable, Alex would have compromised on any principle. But this time, he almost blurted out, "No." Suddenly, he realized why. Because if he married Janet, Helen would never come home. Even though now, she still wouldn't come back. Alex had tried every possible way to find Helen. He went to her workplace, where her colleagues told him she had taken an overseas assignment and already left. He sought out her friends, but they all remained silent, keeping her whereabouts a secret. Every day without Helen, Alex numbed himself with alcohol. That day ended with Janet completely losing her sanity. She screamed, she was just a suitable marriage partner. "You didn't really love her, did you?" Alex suddenly broke down in tears. In a low voice, he repeatedly muttered, "I have always loved her." Chapter 17. 2 years after leaving Alex, I returned to my country from London. Having had enough of the unpredictable weather and endless fish and chips, I watched as the plane landed, feeling a mix of emotions. I was back. However, just as I stepped out of the arrival gate, I saw a familiar figure. It was Alex. He had lost a lot of weight, wrapped in a black coat, with hollow cheeks and a haggard appearance. He must have followed my social media account and learned about my return, waiting here all along. Upon seeing me, Alex burst into tears. He said to me, "I've blocked all of Janet's contacts. Helen, I promise I'll never see her again." I stood there, arms crossed, frowning, and it took me a full minute to remember who Janet even was. This girl who had once loomed large in my mind, whom I compared myself to in looks and body, scrutinizing every detail, wondering why she was Alex's true love. But looking back now, I realized I could barely remember her face. Seeing my silence, Alex thought I was still angry and repeated, "Helen, this time I'll definitely treat you well." I sighed deeply. "Alex, being with someone depends on one factor, whether I love them or not. Now I don't love you anymore, and no matter how good you are, it has nothing to do with me." Alex was stunned. He stood there for a long time, looking at my calm eyes, and stammered, "But I've always loved you. Helen, I've realized that what I felt for Janet was actually regret and unwillingness. Since the day I met you, I've always loved you. Now that you're back, at least let me drive you home." Alex was interrupted. "Sorry." A tall blonde man pulled him aside, took my arm, and handed me a hot latte. Alex looked at the man, wide-eyed in disbelief. The blonde man, seemingly unaffected by Alex's gaze, flicked his hair, revealing a handsome face with ocean blue eyes looking at me. "Honey, someone hit on you again?" I shrugged. Alex's expression instantly turned desolate. "You." The blonde man wasn't done. He looked at Alex with interest. "You said you wanted to drive her home, why not drive me too?" Alex's eyes looked dead. I didn't give him a chance to ask more. I took the blonde man's hand and walked away. After taking a dozen steps, the blonde man lowered his voice and asked, "Your ex-boyfriend?" I hummed affirmatively. "Blonde man, he seems to have misunderstood." I sneered, "With how close you were, it would be hard not to." The blonde man tossed his head, proudly saying, "Can't help it, this is the charm of us Frenchmen." His name was Lance, and he had sat next to me on the flight back. On the plane, he borrowed my tablet to read romance novels online, doing so for 7 or 8 hours straight. Given he had monopolized my tablet for so long, he agreed to buy me coffee as a thank you after we landed. At the taxi stand, I waved goodbye to Lance. Lance leaned in and said, "Can I have your contact information?" I waved him off, telling him to scram. Lance wasn't offended, grinning and saying, "No worries, I believe we'll meet again." The car drove through the night, with dazzling neon lights enveloping me. I rolled down the window, taking a deep breath of the cool night air. The driver was playing a song, and a lyric flew out of the speakers, merging with the endless night. The seagull no longer longs for the sea. It can fly farther,